Lena Moore had never been good at lies, yet here she was, sitting in a warm cafe across from a stranger, wearing her best friend's name like a mask. The porcelain teacup trembled slightly in her hand when his question shattered the polite silence. "Why do you choose a job that saves people? If people always leave anyway?" The words hit harder than any sharp remark she had ever heard in her life. They carried no cruelty, no judgment, only raw honesty. For a moment, Lena forgot to breathe. Her hand froze halfway to her lips, tea rippling in the cup. Slowly she lifted her eyes to the man across from her. He was tall, sharply dressed, his posture straight, but his gaze betrayed something different. Grief, loneliness, and a kind of heaviness that even tailored suits could not hide. That man was Caleb Everett, a CEO, a widower, and the person Lena should never have been sitting across from tonight. Her best friend Joyce had shown her his photo days ago, excitement glowing in her voice. "He's a real CEO, Lena, rich, handsome, and single. His wife died young. Just go for me, pretend you're me, and see what happens. Keep the option open." At first Lena had flatly refused. Pretend to be someone else? Risk being caught? Risk disappointing someone who was already broken? No. But Joyce had pushed and teased, until Lena finally caved. She told herself she would stay for 30 minutes, smile politely, and leave. Easier to sit quietly for an hour than argue for 10 minutes with Joyce. But now, under his steady eyes, she felt the mask slipping. "That's a rather heavy question for someone you just met," she managed, her voice careful, trying to sound light. "I suppose," Caleb replied, stirring his coffee slowly, his tone still calm, still serious. "But I don't like wasting time." The cafe's soft music filled the pause, but neither reached for it. The small talk that blind dates usually thrived on had vanished completely. This was not about favorite movies or weekend plans. This was about something deeper, something unguarded. Lena set her cup down, her fingers curling slightly, pressing against the porcelain like she could squeeze the memory away. Her mind betrayed her, flashing to bright hospital lights, the sound of monitors, her own shaking hands covered in her younger brother's blood, his face, his voice, and then silence. She swallowed hard. "I was in med school," she said quietly. "I wanted to be a doctor, but my brother, he came into the trauma room after an accident. I was the intern on duty. I tried. I failed." Her voice cracked on the last word. Caleb didn't interrupt. He didn't look away. That alone startled her. Most people shifted in discomfort when she spoke of loss, but not him. He listened, his expression unreadable but steady. "After that," Lena continued, her throat tight, "I couldn't go back. Not to med school, not to who I used to be. I became a nurse instead. It's quieter work, less illusion of control." Caleb leaned back slightly, shadows crossing his face. When he spoke, his words were slow, heavy with his own pain. "My wife died 3 years ago. Brain aneurysm. 1 minute she was making coffee, and the next she was gone." Lena inhaled sharply, her chest aching. His confession was not practiced. It was real, raw. "Everyone thinks I need to start over," he added, his eyes flicking to his untouched coffee. "So here I am. On a blind date I didn't want, with someone I never planned to meet." A quiet laugh escaped her lips, dry and tired. "Well, I guess we're both here against our will." For the first time the edges of his mouth lifted. A faint smile. "I'm sorry about your brother," he said, voice low but sincere. "That's a terrible thing to carry." Her eyes stung. She hadn't expected kindness. Not from a stranger. Not from someone who had every right to be cold. "I didn't mean to hijack your night with sad stories," she whispered. "Neither did I," he replied softly. "But at least it's honest." Their eyes met, and the space between them shifted. It wasn't romantic, not yet. But it was real. something far stronger than scripted small talk. The waiter approached with the check, but neither reached for it. Caleb broke the silence first. I was going to walk around Central Park for a bit. Clear my head. Lena hesitated, her pulse skipping. Is that an invitation? His smile deepened just slightly. Only if you need some air, too. Against her own plans, against her promise to leave after 30 minutes, she heard herself say, yes. The cafe door chimed as they stepped into the crisp autumn evening. The air carried the scent of wet leaves and distant rain. Lena wasn't sure why she had agreed to prolong the night, but something about him, about his wounded honesty, made her stay. They walked side by side, quiet but not uncomfortable. A small park appeared just a few blocks away, framed by trees glowing amber in the fading light. Caleb's voice was softer now. I usually come here with my son. He likes the pigeons more than the swings. Lena gave a polite smile, though her chest tightened at the mention of family. She stayed quiet, letting him lead the moment. Children's laughter floated across the park, nannies chasing toddlers, couples sitting on benches. Ordinary life, ordinary peace. Until Lena noticed him. A little boy stood alone near a bench, no older than 3. His lower lip trembled, his big eyes glistening with tears he was trying so hard not to cry. His white t-shirt was stained bright orange from spilled juice. He clutched the empty cup with both hands as if it had betrayed him. Lena's gaze darted to the nanny nearby, distracted by 2 other toddlers. The boy was forgotten. Without thinking, she crossed the path and knelt down in front of him. Her voice softened, the same tone she used in the ER to comfort frightened patients. Hey, champ, looks like Mr. Orange Juice didn't play nice today, huh? The boy sniffled and gave a small nod. Lena reached into her purse, pulling out a soft, worn handkerchief, pale blue with a faded cartoon giraffe stitched in one corner. Her brother had once bought it for her in a hospital gift shop. She had carried it ever since. Well, looks like Mr. Giraffe is on duty today, she whispered, dabbing gently at the sticky mess. Let's fix this up. The boy's tears slowed as he watched her. Then, suddenly, he leaned forward and wrapped his tiny arms around her neck. Lena froze, startled. Then, instinctively, she held him, her arms circling his small body in an embrace that felt so natural it made her chest ache. Daddy! The boy exclaimed, pulling back just enough to look past her. Lena turned, confusion flashing across her face. Caleb stood a few steps away, his eyes wide, his breath caught in his throat. Lucas, he said, rushing forward. The boy wriggled free of Lena's arms and into his father's. Caleb knelt, pressing his forehead to his son's, grounding himself in the simple touch. Then he looked at Lena. His voice was low, almost reverent. He hasn't hugged anyone since his mom passed, her breath caught. I didn't know he was your son. I'm sorry. Don't apologize, Caleb said firmly, shaking his head. Thank you for making him smile. Lucas tugged on Lena's handkerchief, eyes wide. Can I keep Mr. Giraffe? Lena laughed softly, a hint of tears in her voice. Of course you can. For a fleeting moment, Caleb watched them together, his son clinging to this stranger who already felt like someone they had both known. In Lena's eyes, he saw something soft, something he had thought was gone forever. The nanny hurried over, flustered, scooping Lucas up and apologizing. But the moment had already carved itself into Caleb's heart. Later that evening, after Lucas had been buckled into his car seat, the nanny glanced at him in the rearview mirror. You were very brave today. Lucas nodded solemnly. Then he whispered, almost dreamlike. Daddy smiled today. He never does when we go out. But that night, everything shifted. The photo was unmistakable. Joyce, in a bikini, posing by an infinity pool in Bali. The caption? Girls escape. Blind dates. Sorry, not sorry. Caleb's thumb hovered over the screen, his chest tightening. The timestamp was clear. Yesterday, just 30 minutes after their blind date had begun. Joyce had been in Bali, which meant the woman he had spoken to yesterday. The woman who had told him about her brother, about why she became a nurse. The woman his son had hugged. She was not Joyce. She was someone else. The anger rose slowly, sharp and controlled. Not loud, not explosive, but steady as steel pulled too tight. For the first time in years, Caleb left the office in the middle of the morning. No explanation, no schedule. Just a storm inside him he couldn't ignore. Lena was stocking supplies in the medication cabinet when she turned and saw him standing in the doorway. Her breath caught. "Caleb?" His eyes were cold now, his jaw clenched, so unlike the man who had stood beside her in the park. "Is there somewhere we can talk?" he asked. Her palms went damp. She followed him into a quiet hallway, her heart pounding. He stopped, turned, and looked at her with eyes that cut sharper than any scalpel. "Your name isn't Joyce." It wasn't a question. Lena's lips parted, her throat closing, but no sound came. "You let me sit there and pour my heart out," Caleb continued, his voice low and controlled, "while pretending to be someone else. Was I a joke? A game between you two?" "No," she said quickly, her voice barely above a whisper. "It wasn't like that." "Then explain it to me." Lena looked down, ashamed. "Joyce, she asked me to go in her place just to hold the seat. She taught you'd be arrogant or controlling. She wanted to scope you out first without risking her image." Caleb let out a humorless laugh. "So you were the scout?" "No, I didn't want to go," Lena said, shaking her head. "I told her no at first, but I was off shift and she kept pushing. I only agreed to sit for a few minutes. I wasn't going to say anything personal." "But you did," he snapped. "You told me about your brother, about med school, about why you became a nurse. And all of that was real." "Yes," she said, eyes glossy. "All of it was true." "But your name wasn't," he said, taking a step back. "So how am I supposed to believe anything else?" Lena flinched. "I didn't go there to lie," she said quietly. "I stayed because I didn't want to lie anymore." For a second, he just looked at her, and that silence hurt more than shouting ever could. "I opened up to you," he said finally. "I trusted you with pieces of me I haven't shared with anyone since my wife died. I thought maybe." He shook his head. "I was wrong." He turned to leave. "Caleb," she started, stepping toward him, but he held up a hand without looking back. "Please don't." The hallway echoed as his footsteps faded away. Lena stood there frozen, tears gathering at the edges of her lashes. Her fingers dug into her palm, the ache of her own shame pulsing with every heartbeat. She had not gone there to deceive him, but that did not matter anymore. In the end, all he saw was the lie. And it hurt more than she expected because somewhere between coffee and Mr. Giraffe and Lucas's little arms around her neck, she had begun to hope. And now it was all unraveling. The slam of the door still echoed in Lena's mind long after Caleb disappeared. She had tried to breathe, tried to focus, tried to remind herself that she had no right to expect anything more. She had lied, even if it was not meant to hurt. But it did. The rest of the shift crawled by in a blur, patient to patient, chart to chart, smile to smile. She had learned how to function through pain. But today she felt hollow, like she had lost something she had only just begun to believe she could have. Then came the code call. Incoming trauma, pediatric head injury, male, 3 years old, playground fall, ETA 5 minutes. Her heart skipped, then slammed hard in her chest. She told herself it was not him. It could not be. But when the gurney rolled in, she knew the blood on his forehead, the juice-stained shirt, the damp curls, the small body shaking, too scared to cry. Lucas, for a moment. Lena couldn't breathe. Her knees weakened, Her hands turned to ice. It was too familiar. Years ago it had been her brother. A different gurney, a different hospital, but the same panic, the same helplessness. That time, she had not saved him. But now, Lena moved. Training took over. Her voice steadied. "Vitals," she called. A nurse answered. "Stable but fast heart rate." Lucas whimpered as someone tried to clean the blood from his head. Lena stepped in, voice soft. "Hey, baby. You remember me?" Lucas's eyes fluttered open. He didn't speak, just stared. She gently dabbed the wound with a cloth. "It's okay, baby. We'll tell Mr. Giraffe you're safe. I'm right here." He blinked again. Then his tiny hand reached for hers. Lucas was sent in to prep for stitches. Lena's shift had technically ended, but she did not leave. She paced the hallway outside the procedure room, arms crossed, head down. In her mind, she was no longer at work. She was back there on that cold tile floor, whispering her brother's name, watching life leave his body before help ever came. She whispered to no one, or maybe to him. "Please, just let him be okay. Let me get it right this time. I wasn't enough. Before, don't let me fail again." Her voice cracked, her fingers trembled. This was no longer just grief. It was penance. She didn't hear the footsteps until they stopped nearby. She looked up. Caleb stood there drenched, eyes wide with panic. "Where is he?" he asked. She pointed. "In there, just a cut. They're stitching him now." He exhaled, half relief, half dread. Then his gaze found hers. "You're here." Lena nodded, barely holding back tears. "I was on shift," she said. "I didn't know it was him. But when I saw him, I couldn't walk away." Caleb said nothing for a moment. But in that silence, he saw her fully. Not the woman who had lied, not the stranger who sat across from him with a false name, but the one standing here now, broken, still standing, still choosing to stay. "You stayed," he murmured, "even when you didn't have to." Her voice broke. "I couldn't leave him scared. I couldn't lose another child." A nurse appeared a few minutes later. "Mr. Everett, he's awake." Caleb rushed in. Lena followed, unsure if she should, but unable to stay away. Lucas lay under a blanket, cheeks pink, a white bandage covering his head. "Daddy," he whispered, smiling. Caleb took his hand. Then Lucas looked over and reached out his other arm. Lena approached slowly. "You came," he said. She knelt. "Of course I did." And with quiet certainty, Lucas wrapped his arms around her neck. "You're my safe lady." Lena held him close. And this time, when the tears came, she let them fall, because in that moment, the past did not win. Guilt did not win. Love did. And for the first time in years, Lena began to believe she could be healed too. Caleb stared at the printed chart in front of him, his hands unmoving, the pages slightly trembling even in the stillness of the office. He had pulled strings to get it. A favor here, a discreet inquiry there. Old medical records were not easily accessed, especially when they involved a minor, especially from over 5 years ago. But Caleb Everett was a man who got what he wanted when he needed it. And right now, what he needed was the truth. The patient's name, Ethan Moore, 10 years old. Time of death, 4:13 a.m. Cause, blunt force trauma from a car accident. Treatment notes, multiple fractures, internal bleeding. Noted delay in surgical prep due to conflicting assessment from attending physician. But what caught Caleb's eye, what sent a chill down his spine, was the name scribbled in rushed handwriting in the margin of the trauma response log. Initiated compressions, applied trauma protocols, remained until resuscitation, terminated. His eyes scanned the rest of the document slowly, taking in the details. The boy had coded 3 times. There had been confusion about intubation timing. The attending physician on call had insisted on a CT scan before clearance to surgery, wasting over 20 minutes. Lena had been the only one who had acted immediately. Even as an intern, she had done everything she could. Caleb leaned back in his chair, the file resting in his lap now. His thoughts were heavy, swirling. So that was the night she had lost him. And she had been there, not watching from the sidelines, but on the floor, hands shaking, trying to bring her own brother back to life. She had told him the story in fragments, but she had never said it was her shift, that it was her brother, that she had watched him slip away while others hesitated, and she had carried that guilt alone ever since. A soft knock on his office door made him look up. Lucas was there holding a crayon drawing in one hand and a juice box in the other. "Daddy, I drew a lion." "He is brave." Caleb opened his arms and Lucas climbed into his lap. "I like lions," the boy said. "They don't get scared." Caleb smoothed his son's hair gently. "Even lions get scared sometimes," he said, "but they keep trying anyway." Lucas nodded solemnly, clearly believing that to be true. Caleb looked at the drawing again. Crude lines, uneven shapes, but something fierce in the way the little lion stood tall. Just like Lena, all this time Caleb had thought she had run from her past. But now he saw it. She had not run. She had stayed. She had fought. And when no one saved her from the crushing weight of that night, she chose to carry it alone. His voice was barely a whisper as he said the words aloud, more to himself than to Lucas. "You tried to save him, while no one tried to save you from the guilt." He closed the file gently and set it aside. The truth was no longer tangled. It was painfully clear. Lena Moore had not lied to protect herself. She had lied because she thought she no longer deserved anything real, and maybe it was time someone saved her for once. The building stood tall against the gray sky, its modern glass exterior gleaming even in the muted light. A small plaque near the entrance read, "Hope Medical Research Center." Lena hesitated. Outside the door, her fingers brushing against the handle. She had no idea why Caleb had asked her to come. Just a simple message on her phone. "There's something I want to show you. Will you come?" Now here she was. Inside the lobby buzzed with quiet excitement. Staff in lab coats, donors in tailored suits, name tags clipped to expensive jackets. Asmal, reception table displayed brochures, a guest list, champagne. Then she saw him. Caleb stood near the far wall, deep in conversation with two board members. When his eyes met hers, he paused mid-sentence, excused himself politely, and walked straight to her. "You came," he said softly. Lena nodded. "I wasn't sure I should." "I was." He gestured for her to follow him down a quiet corridor away from the gala bustle. They walked in silence until he stopped before a door, plain, unassuming, but new. A temporary nameplate hung beside it. Blank. "This room," he said, "was supposed to be named after my late wife." Lena's heart tightened. She looked down. "You don't have to explain." "I understand." He shook his head. "No, you don't. Not yet." He opened the door. Inside was a spacious, sunlit laboratory, empty for now, waiting for life. Desks, whiteboards, and research equipment lined the walls. On one side, a children's corner, small chairs, a bookshelf, soft toys. A gentle reminder that healing is not just clinical, it is human. "I designed this space in her memory," Caleb said. "It was supposed to represent the future she never got to finish." Lena turned toward him slowly, unsure what to say. "I stopped trusting doctors after she died," he continued. "I stopped believing in hospitals, in systems, in people who claimed they could help but never truly cared." He looked at her then, not with pain, but with clarity, until one reminded me what healing looks like. Lena's breath caught. He stepped closer. "You didn't just care for Lucas. You stayed with him. You stayed with Me even when you had no reason to, and you did it while carrying your own wounds." She shook her head, voice trembling. "I don't want to be someone's second chance. I don't want to live in someone else's shadow." Caleb's voice was gentle. "You are not a replacement." He took her hand slowly, deliberately. "You are the reason I'm ready to begin again." Lena closed her eyes, for a moment. And when she opened them, something had shifted. Not all the pain was gone, but for the first time in years, she did not feel like she had to carry it alone. Then came the twist. From the hallway behind them, heels clicked against tile. The scent of designer perfume drifted in. And then, the voice. "Well," Joyce said smoothly, stepping into the doorway, her smile practiced, her dress just a little too polished. "For the occasion. I always thought I'd be the one you'd choose, Caleb." Lena stiffened but said nothing. Caleb turned to Joyce, his expression calm but firm. "You thought wrong." For a beat, Joyce's smile faltered. She glanced at Lena, then back at him. "I see," she said, her tone clipped. "I hope you enjoy the gala," Caleb added politely but with finality. Joyce lingered a moment longer, but the door was already closing. Lena hadn't moved, hadn't spoken. Caleb turned to her. "I didn't invite her," he said. "I know," she replied quietly. Their eyes met. In a room that had never been named, something new was born. Not in honor of the past, but in hope for what could still be. And this time, Lena did not walk away. The rain had started just after sunset, a quiet, steady drizzle that clung to the air like a whispered memory. Lena stood beneath the awning of the assisted living center where she had just finished her shift. Her scrubs were damp at the shoulders, her hair curling slightly in the humidity. She did not reach for her umbrella. The rain felt honest, unfiltered. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the droplets tap lightly against her skin. A horn sounded once, low and familiar. When she looked up, Caleb's car was parked by the curb. He stepped out before she could move, holding no umbrella, only a small box, dark blue, wrapped in twine. His shirt was already wet through, but he did not seem to care. He walked up to her slowly. "You forgot your umbrella," he said gently. "I think I meant to," she replied. There was a pause, not awkward, but expectant. Then Caleb extended the box toward her. She took it with cautious fingers. The weight surprised her when she opened it. Inside was a folder embossed with the logo of Hope Medical Research Center. She glanced up sharply. "It's a contract," Caleb said. "Official, not symbolic. We want you to come on as program director for Hope Lab, specifically for nurse training and trauma response research." Lena stared at him. "I don't need a favor," she whispered. "This is not a favor," he said. "It's where you were always meant to be." Her throat tightened. The rain blurred her vision, but not enough to hide the emotion in her eyes. "I am scared," she admitted, "of being seen, really seen, and still not enough." Caleb stepped closer, his voice steady. "Then let me see you fully and stay anyway." His hand reached for hers, not forcefully, just open, just waiting. Lena did not speak. She looked down at his hand, then up into his eyes. Then she stepped into the rain, into him. They stood for a long moment like that. Two people, both once shattered, now quietly choosing to stand whole together. Later, that week, Lena found herself sitting on a bench near the edge of Hope Lab's community garden, flipping through the contract once again. Though she already knew every word, she heard footsteps behind her. Turning, she saw Joyce, not in heels, not in designer anything, just jeans, sneakers, a light jacket. Her face held none of the usual gloss, only uncertainty. "I heard you accepted," Joyce said. "I haven't signed yet," Lena replied, voice neutral. Joyce sat beside her, sighing. "I owe you an apology," she said, "for pushing you into that date, for trying to step back in when it was already too late." Lena looked ahead, note answering. Joyce's voice softened. I thought I'd be the one he wanted. Lena finally turned toward her. Joyce continued, eyes slightly glossy. But Caleb didn't need someone impressive or charming. He needed healing. And you gave him that. Silence stretched between them. Then Joyce added, almost afraid. Can we still be friends? Lena's face softened. We always were, she said. Joyce blinked, then smiled. Small, sheepish. The kind that said thank you without saying it out loud. That night, Lena sat at her kitchen table, the signed contract resting beside her tea. She looked at the copy of the offer again, at the line that read, Program Director Lena Moore. Not someone's assistant. Not the girl who once failed. Just Lena, whole, worthy. And this time, she believed it. The rain tapped softly on her window, but inside her chest, something finally felt still. Laughter floated through the hallway like sunlight. Lena paused outside the preschool classroom, peeking in. Inside, small hands held up drawings, stick figures, bright suns, crooked trees reaching for the sky. In the corner, Lucas sat at a tiny table, tongue out in focus, adding bold red lines to his picture. His teacher passed by, smiling. He's been waiting to show you this, she whispered. Lena stepped in. Lucas beamed. Mom, look! He held up his drawing. 3 stick figures under a rainbow, 1 tall, 1 medium, and 1 small with outstretched arms. Above them, Daddy, me, and Mommy. Lena knelt beside him. Is that me? Lucas nodded proudly. That's our family. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she smiled through them. It's perfect. It had been 1 year since Caleb handed her that box in the rain. Since then, Hope Lab had become more than a research center. Under Lena's quiet leadership, it grew into a refuge for nurses who left the field, for doctors on the edge of burnout, for trainees who believed they were not enough. She had helped redefine what healing looked like. Not just medicine, but grace, humanity. Each time she walked its halls, she remembered the girl in the ER hallway whispering to her brother's ghost. And each day now, she walked forward anyway. The wedding was small by the lake behind Hope Lab. Just close friends, family, and the rustling of leaves. No aisle, no altar, just an open circle of chairs beneath the trees. Caleb waited by the water in a simple gray suit, eyes calm but searching. When Lena stepped forward in her ivory dress, uncomplicated, soft, not at all like what she used to picture as a little girl, Caleb's smile was like light after a long gray winter. Lucas, in a tiny vest and bow tie, walked toward them with a velvet ring box clutched tightly in both hands. He paused between them, looked up, and said, I asked Mommy in heaven. She said it's okay to love again. The world went still. Caleb dropped to one knee. His hands trembled as he opened the box. I can't promise perfection, he said, but I promise to keep choosing you every day, even when it's hard. Lena reached for his hands. Her voice shook. Then you'll never be alone in that choice. They exchanged rings, no other words needed. Lucas clapped first, grinning wide. Everyone joined in. Later, the 3 of them stood outside Hope Lab. Caleb's arm around Lena, her hand on Lucas's shoulder, the little boy hugging Mr. Giraffe close to his chest. A photographer clicked one last photo just as sunlight poured through the clouds behind them, lighting the stone wall above the entrance. Carved into it were the words Lena had insisted on. Everyone deserves a second chance, not just to heal others, but to be healed. Lena looked up at the building, then down at the little boy who had made her believe she was still worthy of love. Lucas reached for her hand. Mommy, can we go home now? She smiled and squeezed his fingers gently. Yes, baby, let's go home. And they did. 3 imperfect souls stitched together, not by chance, but by choice. A family with no rule book, but a family all the same. Some stories live on pages. Others live in hearts brave enough to break and brave enough to heal. Lena, Caleb, and Little. Lucas didn't meet by chance. They chose love over fear, truth over pride, and healing over silence. Because family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who stay. If this story touched your soul, please subscribe and hit the hype button. Thank you.